Part 35. All Heaven's Unlimited Base. Author, Jingde Ren. Chapter 344. 339 Poor and Hateful. I represent justice. The robot is the sword in my hand. I will bring peace and tranquility to the Federation. I will never be stopped by you, the executioner. Justice must prevail. The mechanical master stood at the control, shouted in the center. Da-da-da. 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 In the hall below, the bullets and laser beams never stopped for almost a moment. The soldiers of the independent regiment fired wildly at the robots descending from the production line above, splashing countless bullets, and the light of the tracer bullets flickered like a net. The bad news is that these droids are being produced almost non-stop for battle, seemingly endlessly. With the help of a large number of robots, God knows how many resources the master mechanic has plundered in the federal wasteland. But there is still good news. After all, these robots have just been produced, so only a few robots are put into the battlefield at a time. This is basically a refueling tactic. As long as you fight fast, it is difficult for the number of robots to scale. Kill it. Ramirez also lost his temper. He simply stood in the middle of the hall and fired wildly at the production line above his head. He had discovered that he seemed to be invulnerable. A large number of laser beams irradiate him, but the T-60 Tesla reinforced power armor he wears forms an energy loop with charged vacuum tubes outside his body, which can also neutralize a considerable part of the energy of the laser, so he is damaged by the laser very small. In contrast, these temporarily produced robots basically did not use live ammunition weapons. It is true, there is no place to produce bullets here, and the mechanical master naturally cannot afford so many robots that use live ammunition. However, the two independent regiment fighters wearing T-45 a power armor will be in a lot of embarrassment. Because T-45 is a trial model, the heat dissipation is very unsatisfactory. Even if there are no other factors, a lot of heat will be generated after continuous combat, let alone being shot by energy weapons. Not long after the battle started, the two soldiers jumped out of the red burning power armor in a panic, and even their bodies were burned a lot. Here, Chunyuan saw that Ramirez had attracted most of the firepower, turned his head and said to Yi, "Let's take advantage of it now. Master Mechanic seems to think we can't go up. Then go up and talk to him." "Are you going to kill him?" Yi asked with his head tilted. "Don't kill him, I think this guy will be of great use," Chunyuan said. "Okay." Yi smiled, turned his head to look in the direction of the control center, and an excited smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. In the next second, the ground under her feet exploded suddenly, and the whole person shot out, and almost instantly jumped to the floor-to-ceiling glass window of the control center across a distance of nearly 10 meters. A light green light appeared on her fist, and then it smashed hard on the glass. Boom! Wow! The reinforced bulletproof glass shattered suddenly, and countless glass shards hit the mechanic master like bullets. However, the armor on his body, which looked like a cheap special film prop, blocked the broken glass, and he was not actually injured. But he was also completely shocked by this sudden change, and took several steps back again and again. You, how could you? Nothing is impossible, stop all the robots now, and then raise your hand to surrender. Chunyuan took a step behind, and now also jumped in from the hole that was smashed by one just now, looking at the master of mechanics and said viciously. The mechanic master took a few steps back, obviously frightened. But soon he waved his hand violently and said loudly, "No. Impossible. I will never surrender to the executioner. Don't think that you will win. Turret. Dual Note 1. Kill them. I only saw two robots rushing up. One of them is somewhat similar to the Raider robot, but its appearance has also changed drastically. After various enhancements and modifications, the entire left arm is a sharp alloy long sword. The other robot is hanging at the back. It is a robot suspended in the air, only the upper body, the lower body is a jet levitation device like Mr. Skillful Hand. But even so, it can be seen that it is covered with various weapons. It is simply a floating weapon platform. One for each person. Be careful! Chunyuan shouted, and rushed towards the turret. Now that he has figured out Yi's character, she will definitely choose a duel in close combat under such circumstances. Da-da-da-da. The machine gun on the arm of the turret sprayed out long flames, and a large number of bullets drew a trace on the ground. At the same time, the other arm shot out a scorching red laser ray. This kind of laser was so powerful that it slashed across the metal wall and even directly melted a piece of metal. Chunyuan shook his body quickly. As long as he moved faster than the turret could turn his body, then he would not be hit. But in this narrow control center, it's not easy to make such irregular evasive actions. He maximized his speed, used the surrounding computers as cover, and finally rushed over. This robot's IQ is not low. Seeing Chunyuan rushing over, he swung the arm with the machine gun and smashed it. Chunyuan dodged in an instant, and kicked the turret out with a kick in the chest. The armor of this robot is actually quite thick, and it didn't fall apart after this kick, and the nozzle under its body immediately increased the spraying force, and it stabilized its figure after spinning a few times in mid-air. But how could Chunyuan let it stabilize again? At this time, he had already stepped on a computer and jumped into the air, holding the burst shotgun in his hand and aiming at the robot with a single shot. Boom! Although it sounds like there is only one explosion, under the action of the experimental explosive weapon component, every pellet fired by the shotgun is loaded with explosive energy, and at that moment, there are at least 20 small explosions that explode. The heavy armor of the turret finally failed to resist and was blown to pieces. As soon as Chunyuan landed, he saw a mechanical arm with an alloy longsword flying over and landed in front of him. While he was still thinking about what was going on, Yi had already walked over, casually dropped the robot head in his hand, and picked up the longsword from the ground. When he looked back, Duel had been beaten into the wall and turned into a pile of scrap iron. Dad, this sword is very sharp. It should be made of high-strength alloy. You can modify it for me. Yi shook the mechanical arm and said. Why don't you like to use a gun? Chunyuan asked. Yi raised her hand and lightly tapped her chin with her fingers, making her look even more lovely against her beautiful face. She thought for a while and said, well, I just think it's dangerous to use a gun. If the opponent's speed is fast, it's hard to hit. Chunyuan nodded, took over the mechanical arm attached to the alloy longsword, and threw it into his personal space with his backhand. Okay, then go back and let Sturgy help you transform it into a sword you can use. Thank you, Dad. Yi jumped up and hugged Chunyuan's arm very happily. Chunyuan turned around abruptly at this time, looked at the bewildered mechanic master, and shouted sharply, stop all the robots immediately. Now. Yes, 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 yes. The master mechanic was frightened and trembled all over. He hurriedly said to the eyeball robot next to him, Spark, turn off the production line. Beep beep, the eyeball robot named Spark made a beeping sound, and then the production line in the factory gradually stopped. Da-da-da-da, the gunfire outside still didn't stop. Chunyuan hurried to the window and shouted loudly, okay, cease fire. Don't fight. Are you kidding me? This factory is now my own, how can I let them destroy it here? The independent regiment finally ceased fire. In the fierce exchange of fire just now, 3 more recruits were injured. Ramirez sent 2 people over to tend them, and the others started rummaging around to see if there was anything useful. Chunyuan turned around. Yi had already twisted Master Mechanic, and threw it in front of him with a bang. Okay, are you going to take off this ugly helmet yourself, or let me do it for you and take off your head as well? Chunyuan asked coldly. It's up to you to kill or cut as you like. You executioner, the master mechanic's voice gradually dropped. He sat up from the ground and slowly took off his helmet. Under the helmet, there was a woman's face. This guy is actually a woman? However, her appearance can be said to be square and mouthful, which cannot be compared with beauty at all. Yes, I'm sorry, please don't kill me, the mechanic master whispered. Regardless of her appearance, her voice was actually pretty good. What's interesting is that when she was wearing a helmet, her voice was full of air, and under the effect of a voice changer, she spoke like a righteous superhero. But after taking off the helmet, she stuttered, as if she was afraid to say one more word. Do you know why I came to you? Chunyuan said coldly. The master mechanic lowered her head, but looked in other directions, obviously very unwilling and unconvinced. She whispered, I don't know. Do you not know, or do you think I am a murderer who came here to destroy you, a righteous hero? Chunyuan asked again. The master mechanic didn't speak, it was acquiesced. Actually, I did kill a lot of people. I don't deny it at all. But compared to me, you are worthy of the title of murderer. Because I can't kill unarmed people, but you have killed countless unarmed people. Innocent residents. Chunyuan snorted coldly. You are talking nonsense. I saved a large number of federal residents. I am not a murderer. Chunyuan's words just now obviously stimulated her. She raised her head and her voice became louder. That's right, in the name of salvation, he killed those residents one by headshot. What a hero. Chunyuan sarcastically said. I didn't. The mechanic master became excited. Chunyuan turned sideways, beckoned Ada to come up, and said to the mechanic master, there happens to be a victim here, so tell it. Your robot has been chasing us for more than a month, and we have been attacked 3 times. If Boss Yan hadn't arrived in time, we would have been killed. Ada said, you are not saving people, you are killing. No. That's impossible. My robot can't betray me. My programming is flawless. The mechanic master couldn't accept this at all. The robot under your command thinks that killing those residents is to free them from their painful lives? This is salvation. Chunyuan simply explained Jezebel's distorted logic. The master mechanic's expression changed drastically. She threw herself in front of a computer and typed on the keyboard rapidly with her fingers. A moment later, her face turned pale and she knelt down on the ground. It's true, they're actually killing people, the mechanical master hugged his head, tears streaming down his face. She opened a file, and there was a long log on it. The robot squad patrolling outside will report to me every time how many people they have saved and how many people they have saved. I am still full of joy, thinking that I finally did something useful. Chunyuan looked at the diary, which said that on a certain day and year, the Jezebel team rescued 12 residents in XX. On a certain day in a certain year, the Minus team rescued 7 residents in XX. This long log now looks like it is covered with the blood of innocent people. With a long sigh, he turned around and said to the mechanic master, tell me about you. The master mechanic knelt on the ground, sobbing and said, my name is Isabel, I am a robot technician. I have been timid since I was a child. I dare not talk to people or do anything. I only dare to lock myself in the house and mess with the robot. Only when I am with the robot, I will become more courageous and chat with the robot. But, I am not reconciled to this. I want to be a useful person. I want to be recognized by others. I have no other talents, I dare not shoot, let alone fight, and I dare not fight, but robots can. So I started trying to make robots to help me accomplish my goals. They do better than me. Chunyuan nodded slightly, without interrupting her. Isabel went on to say, later, I made more and more robots, and I finally mastered a certain level of strength. I wanted to use robots to help more federal residents. During an accidental exploration, I found this place, Rocco Corporation Sales Center, and I also found this underground production line. I also needed more robots to help me at that time, so I occupied this place and transformed it into a factory that can produce my robots. Then, I discovered the secret here, mind-controlled robots. Note 1, these two small robot bosses have no sense of existence, and their wreckage is often found in the pile of robots when the decisive battle is over and the corpses are turned over. Thank you for the 1000 starting point coin rewarded by the assimilation fighter. Thank you for the 100 starting point coins rewarded by Unreal Way and Under the White Moon. All Heavens Unlimited Base. Author, Jingde Ren. Chapter 345. 340 Mechanic Master Technology Tree. Then you started research on brain-controlled robots? Chen Yuyan asked. Isabel shook her head and said, no, I have no research on the human brain at all, so I didn't touch the experimental materials. But I found a large number of ready-made mechanical brains in the warehouse here. I found that installing these mechanical brains after being on the robot, they will have higher intelligence than ordinary robots, so I use them as signal relays, and in the human concept, they are frontline commanders. How many of these mechanical brains are there? When I found out, there were many brains that had been necrotic. Only more than 30 mechanical brains were still usable, and I installed them all on the robot. If you look carefully at the experimental data, you will find that these brains are all taken from heavy criminals. There are murderers, there are robbers, all of them are vicious people. Even after brainwashing, their killing instinct it still exists. That's why these robots will take advantage of the loopholes in your program logic, and then satisfy their desire to kill. Chen Yuyan said. Isabel said dejectedly, I've actually read those test records, but I didn't know that those brains would be like this. She should have autism, no wonder, so she has no understanding of human nature at all. Chen Yuyan thought for a while, and said, then what are you going to do now? I don't know, I'll give you the host password, this factory, these robots, you can do whatever you want, and I don't know what I should do, I killed with so many people, even if you kill me, I won't have any complaints. Isabel lowered her head as if she was picking something. To be honest, if there is a beautiful woman in front of you, this look is still very tempting, but unfortunately it is not. Chen Yuyan didn't immediately announce how to deal with her. He came to the back of the control center and opened the door with the code Isabel gave, but the scene behind the door shocked him. All I could see was a huge computer mainframe behind the door, and I could only see a wall as far as I could see. There are densely packed star-like lights flashing on it, making people dazzled. What's even more frightening is that there are more than a dozen brain-controlled robots fixed in mid-air on this computer host. These brain-controlled robots have only a basic body and energy supply, and a pair of very flexible mechanical arms. They were typing rapidly on the keyboard in front of him, and with Chen Yuyan's dynamic eyesight, he could tell that they could type more than 10 characters per second. These brain-controlled robots do not need to look at the screen, they are directly connected to the host, and then quickly input instructions. What do these robots do? Chen Yuyan was a little stunned, and he turned to ask Isabel. They will be specifically programmed according to my instructions. Basically, the program code of a robot has billions of entries, and it needs to be revised frequently. So these brain-controlled robots are used for this kind of tedious work. This technology is the most useful technology I got from here. As soon as Isabel mentioned the topic of robots, her sentences became fluent. Chen Yuyan nodded, all this can only be described by black technology, and it is very mechanical punk. He found that the technology in this world is always like this, it looks very simple, but it can always do incredible things. Vacuum tubes are backward enough, right? My own world began to eliminate things in the 1950s and 1960s, But in this world, robots can be made through vacuum tubes. There are also DOS-like operating systems in those computers. Can you imagine that such an operating system can give birth to artificial intelligence? Robots are too dumb. Add a human brain to them. The programming language is too low level and the amount of code is too much. It's okay, I'm looking for a group of robots to automatically write code. The technology in this world is completely unreasonable. Chen Yuyan rubbed his forehead and complained in his heart. But he didn't forget to put his hands on the host and start scanning. Confirm that the host currently belongs to the host, and start scanning the database. The estimated time is 60 minutes. Please do not leave the scanning object within 10 meters, otherwise the scan will be considered a failure. It actually takes 60 minutes. How terrifying is the amount of data here. Chen Yuyan sighed in his heart. He had also thought about it before. This scanning time was actually a limitation imposed on him by the system. Otherwise, with the capability of the system, it may take less than 1 second to scan such data. But he also understands that whether it is the Laplace multidimensional universe calculation system or the infinite base, they all have the purpose of allowing him to grow himself. What these systems want is not the so-called strong ones reproduced according to a fixed pattern, because if there is enough computing power, then the final growth of these strong people can actually be calculated. However, these systems hope that there will be enough randomness and variables in the growth process, so that they can finally get the real strong outside the specification. So after trying to understand these things before, Chen Yuyan became much more relaxed. All he can do is do whatever he wants and make himself stronger. As for the ultimate purpose of these two systems, he is not yet qualified to think about it. He is still very conscious about this point. Since he only has the strength to be a pawn, then he should be a pawn and don't think too much. When you are qualified to be a chess player, think about those questions again. With 60 minutes left, Chen Yuyan looked around, and then said to Isabel, "The crime you committed against the Federation should have been paid for with death, but I think you need another chance." Isabel raised her head in great surprise. You won't kill me? You only have one life, and at least hundreds of people died at the hands of your robot. So, it would be too easy to let you die. You should use your own life to do more for the Federation and even for this world. You should help more people, so that you can pay for your sins. Are you willing? Chen Yuyan said. I do. I do. Isabel nodded like a chicken pecking at rice. Chen Yuyan smiled. Very well, then, you should temporarily belong to the independent regiment of the Volunteer Army. The Volunteer Army is an organization dedicated to helping federal residents and establishing a peaceful social order, and our independent regiment is to eliminate those who threaten the peace of the Commonwealth's greatest enemies. After finishing speaking, he put Isabel's helmet back on her head, and you, Master Mechanic, you will work with the robots you made to bring peace to this federation. After putting on the helmet, Isabel's confidence seemed to be back again. She seemed to be a different person. She stood in front of Chen Yuyan carelessly, with her hands on her hips and said loudly, "Don't worry. My mechanic master and my robot will be volunteers in the future. The sword of justice in your hand. Also, do you know why you failed?" Chen Yuyan asked again. "Because my robot is not strong enough?" The mechanic master said loudly, shaking his fist. "No, it's because you don't have a partner." Chen Yuyan said flatly. "I have many partners. Spark. Turret. Duel. Every robot, they are my partners. The mechanic master is never alone." The mechanic master said, pointing to those robots. Chen Yuyan shook his head. "No, what I'm talking about is human partners. The artificial intelligence technology of robots has not yet developed to the point where they can truly replace humans. Just like this time, you were deceived by your robots. But you don't know it at all. If one day, they also want to save you and free you, what should you do?" You are right. Master Mechanic also needs a partner of justice. Then, you are my first partner, what should I call you? Said Master Mechanic. Call me Boss Yan. Chun Yuyan nodded and said, but you still have to keep a low profile now, after all, the title of murderous demon mechanical master is still very resounding. Oh. I understand. The mechanic master bowed his head and admitted his mistake. Let's go, I'll take you to meet other members of the independent group. Chun Yuyan said, took Master Mechanic down, and introduced him to Ramirez and the others. The mechanic master took off his helmet in front of them, and became the weak autistic engineer again, apologizing to them in a low voice, vowing to make up for the sins he committed with actions. In view of Chun Yuyan's face, Ramirez and the others couldn't say too much, and they also understood that if Master Mechanic corrected his evil ways, it would definitely be a very powerful help. After chatting for a while, a notification came from the system, the scan is complete, the Mechanic Master's database has been entered, now unlock the Mechanic Master's technology tree, and after researching the corresponding technology, you will be able to build the corresponding building. After scanning, the content of Rocco's technology tree has been expanded. After researching the corresponding technology, the corresponding buildings will be able to be built. Chun Yuyan was overjoyed, and found that the infinite base interface in his mind had added a technology tree of a mechanical master. And what surprised him even more was that, as can be seen from the name of this technology tree, the robot system created by Master Mechanic with her robot knowledge was actually recognized as a technology tree by Infinite Base. That's great. You know, this is the first time he has seen a technology tree named after a person. Even William Birkin, who developed the G virus, and Alexia, who developed the Veronica virus, their achievements are only classified into Umbrella's technology tree. It can be seen from this that the mechanical master's talent for robots is simply a genius. Before looking at these newly acquired technologies, Chun Yuyan made some arrangements here. The Rocco sales center occupied by the mechanical master must remain occupied, and the person who is most familiar with this place is still the mechanical master. In the previous conversation, Chun Yuyan had already confirmed that she would not have any more thoughts, so he planned to keep the Master of Mechanics here. But now there is still a hidden danger, because Deacon is present, so he also knows a lot about the Mechanic Master. Chun Yuyan never believed Deacon, this guy was full of lies, and he couldn't figure out what was going on in his heart. With the pissing nature of the railway, God knows if they will have a whim and come here to liberate the robots. There is one thing that Chun Yuyan will never doubt, that is, with the level of a mechanical master, he will definitely be manipulated by Digang. After thinking about it for a while, Chun Yuyan could only ask the master mechanic to stay here first, and close the door tightly as before, not to go out casually, and then modify the program of her robot here first. In this way, even if Deacon and the railway have any ideas, they will not be able to capture here for a while. Then Chun Yuyan would have enough time to subdue them. And Chun Yuyan emphasized to Master Mechanic that since those brain-controlled robots are originally murderers, and even if they are normal human brains, who knows if there will be problems after such transformation, so she needs to suspend the production of brain-controlled robots. The combat command of those robots is handed over to human commanders. Chun Yuyan had thought about asking Hong to command these robots later, but after seeing the main machine and the brain-controlled robots that kept typing on it, he dismissed this idea. At least not for the time being, until it is confirmed that the Red Queen will not be countered by the artificial intelligence here. Let's separate into two systems for the time being. After making these arrangements, Chun Yuyan began to check the technological data obtained. Under Rocco's technology tree, there used to be only a single protector-type robot, but now two types of robots have been added, namely the brain-controlled robot and the radar robot. Both of these technologies are level 3 technologies, which means that after researching, two types of level 3 buildings can be unlocked, which is very critical for him to upgrade the construction center to level 4 as soon as possible. Look at the Mechanic Master technology tree, which directly adds 6 types of robot technology, including the data of swarm robots, tank robots, garbage robots, assembly robots, and 2 small bosses, turret and duel. Among them, swarm robots and garbage robots are level 2 technologies, and tank robots, assembly robots, turret robots, and dueling robots are level 3 technologies. Seeing the technology of the tank robot, Chunyuan checked in the interface, but found that this tank robot was completely different from the quantum-level tank robot he had worked so hard to kill at the door. It looked much simpler, so he left asked the mechanic in the past. "You mean the quantum tank I used to guard the gate?" The master of mechanics said, "That's the robot I made with the best parts, and it can be said to be the most powerful robot under my command. But its destructive power is too powerful. Strong, so I can only guard the goal." "That is to say, are your robots still made of the best parts?" Chunyuan asked. "That's right, I divided all the robots into 5 levels," said the mechanic master. Thanks to book friends 201811021211402272 and book friends 201903021054222274 for the reward of 100 starting coins. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. All Heavens Unlimited Base. Author, Jingde Ren. Chapter 346. 341 Complete System. 5 levels. Chunyuan became interested. He felt that the reason why the infinite base system would regard the data of the mechanical master as a separate technology tree was probably the reason. That's right, 5 levels. The mechanical master stretched out his palm with one hand on his hips: ordinary level, servo mech, combined level, integrated, cybermech level, cybermech, and quantum level, quantum level. Chunyuan nodded, thinking in his heart that the crude tank robot he saw in the technology tree before was just an ordinary level 1, and the quantum level tank that he met at the factory gate before was the most advanced one. No wonder, if he and Yi hadn't been there for that robot, I'm afraid Ramirez and the others would all have to explain it here. He continued to ask, "Then what standards are these 5 levels based on?" "I have developed an upgrade system for each type of robot, so that it is convenient for me to use the factory's production line to mass-produce robots. Different levels are divided according to standards such as weapon systems, engines, armor, and chips. I put the specific plans have been input into the mainframe," the master mechanic replied. "For example, I installed an electromagnetic field on each quantum-level robot, and used a charged vacuum tube to form an electromagnetic repulsion field, which can effectively defend against the design of bullets." "Then how are these robots of yours designed?" The master mechanic explained very patiently. "Are you talking about the types of my robots? There are mainly 4 types of mass-produced robots. Swarm bots are built on the basis of Mr. Skillful's jet suspension engine. This kind of engine is easy to find, so the output is large. This type of robot is mainly flexible, and it is very convenient to carry out various combat operations when suspended in mid-air, but the disadvantage is that the structure is too fragile. The junkbot is built using the framework of the Protector robot, but I optimized it. Including the transmission module, balance gyro, engine, etc., it is basically a completely redesigned robot. However, because the framework itself is very crude, these garbage robots are only stronger than Protector robots. Of course, if there are enough parts to produce quantum-level garbage robots, they are still very powerful." The master mechanic proudly introduced these robots as if introducing his own son. Then the assembly robot: "Scrapbot, I used the parts I got from the Raider robot, and some sensors from Mr. A brand new melee tracking system is a very flexible robot that can be used mainly for sneak attacks or close combat. Then there is the most powerful tank robot, Tankbot. I refer to the 3-legged design of the Iron Guard robot for this type of robot, and I also redesigned the omnidirectional mechanism wheel they use, integrating the design of the track into the among the mechanism wheels, They have a greater load, so that they can carry a lot of armor and weapons. Then there are duels and turrets. They are the prototypes for my next generation of more advanced robots, so there is no higher level design plan for the time being. As long as I give me time, I will also complete duels and turrets from servo level to quantum level. Designed. Finally, because the data about the brain-controlled robot, RoboBrain, in this base is very complete, I have also extended the design of the brain-controlled robot according to the 5-level standards I set. The main purpose is to prevent the brain-controlled robot as the front-line commander from being destroyed soon. These data are all in the mainframe, said the mechanic master. Chenyuyan listened patiently. Although he couldn't understand many of them, he also understood the power of the master mechanic. When she modified these robots, she didn't modify them randomly, but summed up a system for herself. Note 1. He asked in his mind, "System, will there be another production line after these advanced technological researches? For example, ordinary tank robots and quantum tank robots are two different production lines? Not so. After you upgrade the corresponding technology, you must upgrade the production line to produce more advanced robots. Take the tank robot as an example. You need to upgrade the tank robot factory to level 5 to make quantum level tank robots. The function of building upgrades will be enabled at the level 4 manufacturing center. That means that before I upgrade to a level 4 manufacturing center, I can only make ordinary robots?" Chenyuyan asked. Indeed so. But why didn't I upgrade the Hunter production line when I produced B.O.W Hunter Alpha and Hunter Beta? Chenyuyan asked again. That's because the performance span of Hunter Alpha and Hunter Beta is not large, and they basically belong to the same level. If you have developed the sweeper under the branch of the Veronica virus technology tree, you need to upgrade the Hunter production line to produce sweeper. Okay, I understand. Chenyuyan didn't bother too much. In fact, after he returned to the world of Command and Conquer, he would start researching technology as soon as possible. After getting the technology here, he can almost cobble together 10 different level 3 buildings. The only thing that makes him a little upset is that there is no way to conduct scientific and technological research in other worlds, or even if you do research, the research progress will not increase. Maybe it is because the time for scientific and technological research is based on the world of Command and Conquer bar. When he went to other worlds, the time of these worlds was relatively static compared to the world of Command and Conquer. Now counting the mind-controlled robot, radar robot, tank robot, assembly robot, turret robot, and dueling robot obtained from here, there are 6 kinds of level 3 technologies. After the research is completed, there are 6 kinds of level 3 buildings. Together with the robot workbench I got from Jackson earlier, there are 7 types. Then the Red Queen is also considered a kind, so you only need to unlock 2 more level 3 buildings. After Chenyuyan planned to go back, he immediately started researching advanced T-virus technology, from which he could unlock level 3 technologies including Tyrant T-103 and Gravedigger, and unlock the corresponding level 3 buildings. Getting the explanation directly from the original author of the technology tree is indeed more clear than slowly looking for the explanation in the infinite base system. After Chenyuyan learned about the robot technology of the master mechanic, he started to think about this factory, so he put his hands on the factory production line and read silently to scan. The next second, he was stunned. Note 1, before the appearance of the DLC Mechanical Legion, the robot prefixes of the Federation were very confusing. For example, there were Reapers and Slayers in Iron Guard robots, Ergon or something, I can't tell the difference at all. But on the Mechanic Master's side, you can see that the new robots that appear in the DLC are all modified by her, and the prefixes of these modified robots are very uniform: ordinary, no prefix, servo, combination, cyber, quantum, 1 by 1. Strong, and each level has common characteristics. For example, all quantum level robots have an electromagnetic stance. So this can only be counted on the head of the Mechanical Master, She is indeed a super awesome robot engineer. Thank you for the 1000 starting point coins rewarded by the Star Sea Rangers. Thanks for the reward of 100 starting coins under the White Moon. All Heavens Unlimited Base. Author, Jingde Ren. Chapter 347. 342 I am making a lot of money. Scanning will take 10 minutes, please do not leave the factory within 10 meters. It actually takes 10 minutes to directly scan the factory instead of the technical data. Chen Yuyan's heart was shocked, but at the same time, he also had more expectations in his heart, because this showed that this factory might bring him another great surprise. Sure enough, 10 minutes later, the system prompts came one after another. The scan is complete, Rocco's large-scale computing center has been added to the infinite base database and can be built. After scanning, Rocco's comprehensive robot production line has been added to the infinite base database and can be built. After the scan, Rocco's brain research center has been added to the infinite base database and can be built. Relevant technologies detected, analyzing. After building Rocco's large-scale computing center, Rocco's robot comprehensive production line, and robot workbench, complete the research of any 8 types of robot-related technologies, and unlock advanced comprehensive buildings universal robot factory. Currently building Rocco's large-scale computing center, 0, Rocco's comprehensive robot production line, 0, robot workbench, 1. 4 robot-related research projects have been carried out: the worker ant drone, the NS-4 civilian robot, the protector robot, and the terror robot. Chen Yuyan was dumbfounded when he heard that, and he hurriedly asked, "What does the Universal Robot Factory do?" It can produce every kind of robot that has been researched, and has 5 built-in robot production lines, which can produce 5 robots at the same time. At the same time, the program of the robot can be corrected, maintained, and upgraded at any time. Wait a minute, don't I still have a crab spider engineering robot and a CE-2 engineering robot? Why don't they count? These 2 are the finished products drawn by the host during the lottery, they do not contain technological data, and cannot build production lines. Even this is powerful enough. The technology tree of the Mechanic Master, plus Rocco's Robot Factory, plus the robot workbench invented by Jackson, this series of technologies can be mixed together to unlock a very advanced building that sounds just like it. Universal Robot Factory. With this factory, it will be more convenient to manufacture robots in the future, and it will be more convenient to plan, so that a large number of miscellaneous production lines will not be mixed together, and the types of robots produced can even be adjusted at any time according to specific needs. This place is completely a treasure house. And the infinite base magnifies the value of this treasure house infinitely. It is conceivable that if other experimenters came to occupy this place and let the mechanical master join, then at most they would only get this ready-made robot factory. But Chen Yuyan can build countless factories like this through the infinite base. Chen Yuyan has already begun to think about how to directly transform these technologies into combat power. But it's a pity that we can't research technology yet, but there should be a way to get around it. Chen Yuyan thought for a while, and he called the Master of Mechanics over and asked, "Restricting your mass production of quantum-class tanks? What is the biggest bottleneck of the robot?" "One is energy. This robot factory consumes a lot of energy. I have tried my best to let the robot collect nuclear fusion cores everywhere, but it is still not enough. On the other hand, there are not enough core materials." The mechanic replied. "Those materials? Military-grade circuit boards, horizontal gyroscopes, vacuum tubes, crystal prisms, fiber optics, and more. Do you have these things ready-made? Let me see. Part of it is there, Spark, find a guy to help me move it here." The mechanic master said. Diddy the very unique eyeball robot Diddy for a while, and soon saw a garbage robot coming over, holding a bunch of miscellaneous parts in its hands. Chen Yuyan looked at these parts, and then scanned them one by one into the database of Infinity Base. After trying it out, he found that it could be built with very cheap points and resources. It seems that for the infinite base, there are only two bottlenecks in the manufacture of a thing: data and resources. As long as these two conditions are met, there will be no pressure in production, and the production process and processing accuracy will never be a problem. In this case, with the master mechanic himself here, as long as these hardest to get parts can be produced directly with the infinite base, the resources needed will be much less. And the most important thing is, even if he didn't upgrade to a level 4 manufacturing center after producing those rare key parts, the master mechanic could still create a terrifying robot like a quantum level tank robot for him. Chen Yuyan also discovered this point. In fact, the system of infinite base is still people-oriented in essence. For example, the Veronica virus database given to him by Alexia Ashford contains only a few B.O.Ws, but this super talented girl can continue to develop viruses, so as to produce more and more powerful B.O.Ws. Even speaking, if Alexia dabbles in other technologies, she can develop a variant of the Veronica virus, so that these technologies cannot be obtained through scanning. In fact, there are already some clues. Wang Jinsong discovered the way to combine the T-virus B.O.W and the mutation of tiberium mines by finding the tracers of tiberium mines erosion. Although it is still at a very preliminary theoretical stage, the follow-up development is also worth looking forward to. After making the decision, Chen Yuyan took the independent regiment to stay in the sales center of Luo Company for an extra day, and the fighters of the independent regiment also happened to have a rest. The mechanic master repaired the defense system that they had beaten to pieces before, and Chen Yuyan was also helping her manufacture some scarce parts so that she could produce some more advanced robots. After a lot of patchwork, Chen Yuyan finally helped the master of mechanics gather together the materials that can produce two cyber-level tank robots. Although the cyber-level tank robot is one level behind the quantum level, it is still a very powerful robot. In addition, there is a quantum-level assembly robot, materials for a quantum-level garbage robot, and some materials for a cyber-level robot. In this way, when the mechanic master produces these robots, the defense of Rocco's sales center will become very solid again. In fact, all this was done for Deacon's eyes. The secret meaning was to tell him not to make small moves. This factory is not a place that your railway can occupy. Chen Yuyan was still not at ease, so he left Walter and two other relatively simple and honest recruits from the independent regiment here, and asked them to assist the mechanic master in his work, so as to prevent her from messing around and making troubles here alone. What's coming? A day later, Chen Yuyan took Dagan and the rest of the people back to Sanctuary Hill. After solving the problem of the mechanic master, he also got the robot genius of the mechanic master, and at the same time, he also got a lot of very useful technologies and a robot factory. All Heavens Unlimited Base. Author, Jingde Ren. Chapter 348. 343 Rapid Development. After returning to the sheltered hill, Chen Yuyan got the system prompt again. Task: dispel the cloud that hangs over the federal residence. It has been partially completed. You can end the task and start the settlement. May I ask whether you want to end the task? Nonsense, of course it's not over. The mission continues. Chen Yuyan said in his mind. This task reminder also confirmed his previous thoughts, and there were more than one cloud. Synthetics of the Academy, mechanical masters, super mutants, predators, ferocious ghouls, these are the clouds over the heads of the federal residents. In any case, one of them has been solved now. The mechanic master has been incorporated, and her robots will no longer save the residents of the Federation. The situation is very optimistic now, and because Knight's relationship is there will be a day of liquidation with the Academy sooner or later, and it is definitely impossible to end the mission now. He has not forgotten that the task rating in this world must be above a level to get the chance to monopolize this world. Only by monopolizing this world can talents like Mechanic Master and Knight be brought back. Moreover, He had promised night before that he would take him and his son Sean to watch another Boston Red Sox game. For the time being, I am not in a hurry to find trouble with the academy. I have just accepted the mechanical master and her factory, and it will take some time to digest. Moreover, Knight went to track down the news of the academy, but there is no news so far, so he should stabilize his basic foundation in this world as soon as possible. Chun Yuyan went to find Preston Garvey and began to reorganize the volunteer army. The first point is the standardization of weapons used by the volunteer army. Now he only has one light weapon production line, which is the production line of the Scorpion I 9mm caliber assault rifle. This kind of assault rifle can completely deal with the vast majority of enemies in this world, and most importantly, the 9mm x 52mm full power bullets used by the rifle are not available in this world, so even if the weapon is captured, the opponent cannot use it. Because some points have been accumulated during this period, Chun Yuyan added 2 more production lines for Scorpion rifles in the Sheltered Hills, continuously producing assault rifles for the volunteers to use. At the same time, the production line of ordinary bullets has also increased to 3, mainly producing various bullets. The other is to expand the production and refining of tiberium crystals. In addition to establishing a conversion pool for tiberium crystals in the underground oil storage tank of the Red Rocket Maintenance Station, the independent group began to cross Concord again and expand to Lexington. The number of independent regiments also began to increase. In addition to Preston's direct arrangements, many soldiers from the volunteer army volunteered to join the independent regiment. Chun Yuyan appointed Ramirez and the other 2 soldiers who originally joined the independent regiment as captains, and asked them to be responsible for the training and selection of recruits. This expansion operation to Lexington Township is also a military training operation with a clear goal, which is to reoccupy the Wuxia assembly plant. After the factory was slaughtered by Chun Yuyan and Yi, it was quickly occupied by other looters. However, these looters didn't have any unified organization, they just had a lot of people. After 3 days of fierce fighting, 50 independent regiment fighters drove away the looters who occupied the place and reoccupied the Wuxia assembly factory. Next, this place will serve as a separate resident of the independent regiment, and the fighters of the independent regiment will center on the Wuxia assembly factory and begin to gradually eliminate the mad ghouls entrenched in Lexington. Moreover, a large number of storage tanks above the Wuxia factory are also used to store tiberium mines. Raw material. This place actually became a factory where the soldiers of the independent regiment killed the ferocious ghouls, and then used their corpses to make tiberium mines. As for the General Atomics shopping plaza, after Jackson reached an agreement with the director as the representative of the Volunteer Army Company, he also began to maintain and transform the robots there, and also built a batch of new robots. However, Jackson's talent in robot transformation is more than 1 grade weaker than that of mechanical masters, so the main task of the robots in the shopping center is to collect supplies and escort them to various places. The most important thing is that these are robots, and robots don't need to worry about being replaced by academic synthetic humans. At the same time, the Volunteer Army headquarters in Preston is also steadily expanding, and they have absorbed many surrounding villages to join. Centered on the absolute commanding heights of Starlight Rest Station, the influence of the volunteers has expanded to include Green Roof Nursery, Abernathy Farm, Sunshine Coast Cooperative, Ten Pine Village, General Atomics Shopping Center, Concord Town, and Wuxia Assembly Plant. In the total population of more than 10 villages in the village also exceeded 1,000. Moreover, scattered vagrants continued to join in, allowing them to control more and more people. It is worth mentioning that they also found a team of handy robots in Grey Gardens tending a soilless garden. Seeing that it was a gang of robots, Preston went to Jackson for help. After the robots of Jackson and Ada helped the robots in Grey Garden to solve the water problem, Grey Garden was also incorporated into the sphere of influence of the Volunteer Army, and it will also become a very important crop production base. The volunteer army also occupied a place called the Tuffington Boat House. This is a house built on the water. Bones and offal can also be used as fertilizer. Not only that, the volunteers also crossed the Charles River and established a stronghold at Oberland Station. This was also the first stronghold of the volunteers on the east bank of the Charles River, which also meant that the volunteers began to extend toward Boston. And now in Boston, the Brotherhood of Steel is starting to expand around with the Boston Airport on the east side of Boston as its headquarters, and the entire east of downtown Boston is their sphere of influence. The west side of downtown Boston is the sphere of influence of Diamond City. However, Diamond City will definitely not intervene in the struggle between the two sides. If the current situation continues, then it is likely to be a confrontation between the Volunteer Army and the Brotherhood of Steel along the Charles River. Of course, with the current population in the last days, neither side has the ability to defend such a long river bank. And under such a situation, the Volunteer Army, which has occupied Concord and is expanding its power eastward to Lexington, still has a tendency to encircle the city from the countryside. Chun Yuyan and Preston Garvey have already discussed the system after the reconstruction of the Volunteer Army. Now those villages that join the Volunteer Army must first accept the garrison of the Volunteer Army. However, the Volunteer Army will also help these villages form self-police groups with about 5 to 20 people. And distribute weapons. The weapons of the self-police group are all weapons replaced by the Volunteer Army, and depending on the size of the village, the self-police group will also allocate about 5 to 20 protector-type guard robots, which can ensure that the village has a certain amount of self-defense and security forces. In addition, these villages need to elect a village chief and a police chief from among their own villagers, and then the Volunteer Army will send an instructor to the village. The instructors have no real power, they just build a bridge of communication between the village and the Volunteer Army. These villages will also regularly turn in certain materials as taxes. Another very important thing is the trade between villages, which is a very critical factor. Because the roads of the Federation are basically blocked by all kinds of rubbish and wreckage, and cannot be open to traffic, and even if Chun Yuyan uses the infinite base to manufacture some jeeps, he will lie down because he has no fuel. Therefore, in order to connect the huge control area of the Volunteer Army, we must rely on the caravan. For this reason, Preston established 5 caravans, and this number will continue to increase. These caravans will become the blood of the Volunteer Army and turn the Volunteer Army into a whole. Chun Yuyan even planned to build a few tick tanks to escort the caravan. These tanks use Tiberium engines, so there is no need to worry about fuel. But there are still problems, and that is the Academy and the synthesizers. Once the Academy keeps an eye on these tanks, with their surreptitious means, maybe one day they will replace the drivers and take the tanks into their own pocket. This risk cannot be taken yet. However, the development of the Volunteer Army is very benign now. Preston has already begun to plan the household registration system, but now this is just a plan. After all, the Volunteer Army has just established a firm foothold. However, in this way, the military force directly under the Volunteer Army was relatively weak, so Chun Yuyan's independent regiment also began to improve its status and became the main force of the Volunteer Army in large-scale foreign operations. Of course, there is also bad news. For example, the expansion of the Volunteer Army in Covenant Village has hit a wall, and the Volunteer Army is not willing to accept the entry and protection of the Volunteer Army. In addition, a group of looters also appeared on the side of the Bush excavation site. They were not far from the Shelter Hill, and sometimes they would attack the caravan between the Shelter Hill and Ten Pine Village. Preston told Chun Yuyan about this, and told him that the Bush excavation site was a quarry and a mine, but it had been abandoned for a long time and had been flooded. Later, a looter leader named Sully Mathis went there in disguise to use the pump to pump water. Later, the pump broke down, and Knight went to help him fix it. As a result, the water was drained, and the looters under Mattis took advantage of the opportunity to occupy the mine. Now the terrain on the other side of the mine is easy to defend and difficult to attack, but it has become a thorn in the territory of the volunteer army. It was only then that Chen remembered that it was no wonder that when he first arrived in this world, when he and Walter set off from Shizongzhuang to Concord to search for supplies, they found a small stream on the road, which turned out to be the water pumped from the mine. Regarding these vicious and unrepentant predators, Chen Yuyan was not polite, and directly sent a message to the Master of Mechanics, asking her to send a small team of robots over, and then the independent group sent 20 fighters to attack the bush excavation site together. As for himself, he has been helping the volunteers establish their own agricultural and industrial systems for the past few days. In addition to establishing a bullet factory and a Scorpion rifle production line so that the volunteers' weapons can be self-sufficient, he is also expanding the construction of a soilless plant factory centered on gray gardens, and planting some crops unique to the Federation on a large scale, including mutated fruit, Blade Valley, and more. Then there is another very important building, the recycled cement factory. The data of this factory was obtained by Chen Yuyan from Lin Huo. After all, an important product of Iron Hammer Town under Lin Huo's rule at that time was recycled cement. These recycled cements are made by grinding and processing concrete fragments in the ruins. Of course, it would be best if there were limestone mines. Now there is a ready-made mine under their noses. After Chen Yuyan plans to capture the bush excavation site, he will build a mining base there and build a cement factory to provide cement for all the villages within the range controlled by the volunteer army. By the way, some brick kilns can also be built. Brick kilns don't need an infinite base to build, as long as there are specific methods. In this way, the villages under the volunteer army will be able to live in houses of cement and masonry, and bid farewell to the dilapidated houses made of broken planks and broken iron sheets. And more importantly, the volunteer army will also be able to build reinforced concrete fortifications to make their defenses more unbreakable. To complete so many construction plans, Chen Yuyan still needs to build several worker ant drone factories. So when calculated in this way, Chen Yuyan found out very depressed that a lot of points are still needed. Although his current power rating in this world is level 1 village level, and 50 points are credited to the account every day, it is still far from enough. In this way, more than a week passed in the busyness. On this day, when Chen Yuyan was organizing workers to build brick kilns at the occupied bush digging site, Deacon suddenly came to find him. Deacon was a little mysterious during this time, but he still obeyed the agreement and did not leave Chen Yuyan's side, but he didn't know what Deacon was doing. During this time, I have also seen the development of the volunteer army. I have seen you growing day by day. From the bottom of my heart, I think that you are very worthy partners. Now, it is time for me to fulfill my promise to you first. Deacon said. Has the operation been completed? Chen Yuyan asked directly. That's right. I was notified that they have arrived in Concord. Let's go and have a look, Deacon said. Chen Yuyan nodded. He was also very concerned about the two wounded in his heart, so he called Yi and ran over without stopping. When he came to Concord, Chen Yuyan found a group of residents watching at the entrance of the town. Who are they? Robots? Awesome. If it's a robot, it's definitely the most advanced robot. No, they're not robots. I know the one on the left, isn't it green from the independent group? So, is it a synthetic human? Bullshit. Could a synthetic be like this? Chen Yuyan separated from the crowd, and when he saw the two people in the middle clearly, his eyes lit up. I only saw Erwin and Green standing there. Their bodies had been greatly changed. Mechanical cyborg prosthetics were implanted on their bodies, and all limbs that could not be used due to nerve atrophy were replaced with machines. The mechanical red and black on their bodies have a clear nod Brotherhood style. A Gatling machine gun is installed on their left hand, and a flamethrower can also be protruded from the mechanical prosthesis on their right hand. The two people standing here now have completely become terrifying human weapons. Thank you for the 1000 starting point coins rewarded by the Star Sea Rangers. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. All Heaven's Unlimited Base. Author, Jingde Ren. Chapter 349. 344 The Strongest Power of the Federation. Irwin and Green were at a loss as they were watched by so many people. They hadn't fully adapted to the new cyborg prosthesis yet, and their movements were a little jerky, which made them even more frightened. Seeing their appearance, Chunyuan strode forward, grabbed their shoulders from left to right, turned around and said loudly to the crowd, "Let me introduce you again. This is Irwin, dude, this is Green Savage. They are all fighting heroes of our volunteer independent regiment." Chunyuan's voice was very loud, and the residents who were chattering and gesticulating suddenly shut up and looked up at him. Now Chunyuan is also very well known in the area under the jurisdiction of the volunteer army. He eliminated the Wuxia assembly plant, cleaned up the town of Concord, incorporated the General Atomics shopping center, defeated the mechanical master, marched into Lexington, and reoccupied the bushes, the excavation site. This series of large-scale military operations were carried out by him and the independent regiment. In addition, during this period of time, Knight was investigating his son's affairs and rarely showed up on the side of the volunteer army. Therefore, in the eyes of the residents, Chunyuan had replaced Knight and became the most powerful and trustworthy person in the volunteer army. Hearing his words, the eyes of the surrounding residents looking at the two cyborg fighters also began to change. Chunyuan continued to speak loudly, "You also know that there are a group of robots in the Federation, hunting and killing innocent residents everywhere. Maybe some of you have been attacked by robots. And a week ago, we finally found these robots' traces of action. However, these intelligences are hidden in the hands of a group of looters called Rust Demons." Afterwards, Chunyuan told everyone about the battle when he attacked the Rust Demon in a vivid and eloquent way. However, he did not say that he and Yi were basically the strength to hold the audience. On the contrary, he talked about the brave fighting of the independent regiment fighters. And he grasped the proportion very well, that is, he didn't let Irwin and Green, who were present at the time, know that he was bragging, and he also well set off the role played by the two people in the battle at that time. The surrounding residents were sweating profusely, and each of them stretched their necks involuntarily, afraid of missing a word. When they heard the appearance of the devil-like Iron Guard robot Ahab, there was a low cry of fear among the crowd. When they heard that Irwin was burned by the sea of fire ejected by Ahab, everyone looked at him with reverence. After that, Chunyuan told Green that in his storytelling, Green sacrificed himself to create an opportunity for Chunyuan, which allowed him to defeat the leader of the Rust Demon wearing advanced power armor Ivy. But although Ivy was killed, Green was also hit by Ivy's stun gun. He barely survived under the powerful electric shock, but he was paralyzed at a high level due to nerve atrophy. So, we should give our applause and cheers to these two combat heroes. Because in the days to come, they will continue to protect us. Continue to be our heroes. They have accepted mechanized transformation, but inside their bodies, there is still a fiery heart. Their ruthless side will only appear in front of the enemy forever." Chunyuan said loudly. "Whoa! Whoa! Irwin! Green! Our hero! Hero! Hero!" Amidst the cheers of the crowd, the eyes of the two cyborg fighters were filled with tears. They raised their hands high and waved to the crowd. What's more, they looked at Chunyuan. It was full of gratitude and respect. It can be said that after this time, even if Chunyuan asked them to go up the mountain of swords and down into the sea of fire, they would not frown. This scene also made every volunteer soldier present excited. At this time, they realized what Chunyuan often said, what it means to let them gain more value. Just like Irwin and Green, if they were placed in the past, they would have been completely useless and would have abandoned them 10 to 10. Those who are kinder-hearted, give them a bullet to make them die decently, and those who are more vicious, just throw them outside to feed the wild beasts. But Chun Yuyan not only rescued them, but also let them undergo mechanized transformation. The set of cyborg prosthetics on them, anyone can see the expensive value. Anyway, if you convert the set of cyborg prosthetics into bottle caps, you can at least buy the lives of 100 civilians like them. With such a boss, who would not want to work for him? Chun Yuyan came to Irwin and Green, stretched out his hand and grabbed their arms with Gatling guns, and held them up high. The cheers of the surrounding residents grew louder and louder. He smiled and said, "Welcome back to the team, the captains of the independent team, Irwin and Green." Woo, the two of them were already sobbing, and they couldn't even utter a complete sentence. "Don't think too much, you know, all our sacrifices are for a better future for the Federation. Think about the Federation where there is no killing, no bloodshed, and no bullets flying. Isn't it worth fighting with our lives?" Chun Yuyan's voice became louder and louder, and in the end it was almost for everyone present. Yes. For the Federation. Long live the Volunteer Army. Long live the Independence Group. Long live Boss Yan. The residents cheered again. Chun Yuyan looked at these people with great satisfaction. A proper show like this is really getting twice the result with half the effort. Among other things, most of the 100 or 200 people present today will become volunteers, become independent groups, and even become loyal followers of Chun Yuyan. This is faith. He glanced at Diagon without a trace, and said loudly again, "Let us once again dedicate our applause to this gentleman, respected Mr. Deacon. It was his excellent technique that completed Irwin and Green's mechanized transformation. He is also our solid ally." "Oh, Mr. Diagon." The residents who had entered a state of frenzy cheered again. However, Diagon's expression was not very good at this time, and he still has not figured out why Chun Yuyan pushed him to the front stage. These bursts of cheers did not make him feel happy, but instead made him feel ashamed. After the people around dispersed, Chun Yuyan led Irwin and Green towards the Wuxia assembly factory, which is now the base of the independent regiment. Just in the middle of hunting the mad ghouls, these two cyborg fighters can also get used to their new bodies. After walking a certain distance, seeing that there was no one around, Diagon asked Chun Yuyan coldly, "What did you mean just now?" "Oh. What do you mean?" Chun Yuyan asked knowingly. "We're all smart people, you know what I'm talking about." Chun Yuyan didn't look back, but kept looking at the distance of the road. In that direction, the setting sun on the horizon had already reflected the surrounding clouds into red, which looked gorgeous. He asked indifferently, "How does it feel to be surrounded by those residents and accept their heartfelt thanks and cheers?" "I am a person who walks in the shadows. Cheers and thanks are not worthy of me," Deacon replied. "Have you thought about where your railway will go after killing the academy?" Chun Yuyan asked. "I don't even know if I can see that day. The strength of the academy is beyond your imagination." "No, you can see it. The lifespan of the college is at most 2 months. Where did you get your confidence?" "I stand here with confidence." Digen took a step forward, stood side by side with Chun Yuyan, also looked at the sunset in the distance, and said slowly, "Even if the academy is destroyed, my mission has not been completed. There are more synths waiting for us to save them. To liberate. Even if you are not a synthetic human, you still want to do this? Would you rather give up your life? When people live, they must have some goals, right? You were also there when I was talking to Master Mechanic. What do you think of her and her robots? Do you want to liberate them too?" "I want to, but I don't have to. It's not necessary." Chun Yuyan turned his head to look at Deacon's side face, and he found that the expression of this deeply hidden man was also extremely serious. "There is no need to liberate a murderous robot like Jezebel," Deacon said. So it's digging in Gray's gardens now. And there is no need to liberate robots like Spark. Because the mechanic master doesn't use them as tools, but as partners. It seems that you are still very sensible. When did I give you the impression of being completely unreasonable? Chen Yuyan smiled and said, so I think your railway organization is not good at all, it's too far behind. Tell me, where is the difference? First of all, I must clarify that I don't mean any contempt for you. It's just because the power balance between you and the academy is too huge, so you don't have more time and space to think about more things. However, I really think that your ambitions can actually be bigger. Chen Yuyan said. What is a bigger method? Have you thought about the future of the synthetic humans you saved? As you said, you modified their memories and let them integrate into human society. But you made the biggest mistake. What is wrong? Their original identities, as synthetic humans or robots, are their Achilles heel in human society. Once discovered, they will lose everything, even their lives. Between survival and destruction, the only guarantee is the good concealment of the Academy's third-generation synthetics. But can you guarantee how long they can continue to operate normally after losing the maintenance of the Academy? Deacon didn't speak, just continued to look at the sunset. The current human society still cannot tolerate the existence of synthetic humans. Especially in the Federation, this is also due to the actions of the Academy. Chen Yuyan said, so what you want to change should be the Federation itself, not a handful of liberated synths. Change the Federation? How can we do it? Deacon snorted coldly, and he lit a cigarette for himself. Just because of the cheering residents who surrounded you just now. Chen Yuyan said, this is the most powerful force in this Federation. It is close at hand and far away. You ask me why I put you pushed to the stage, I am answering you now, I am showing this power in front of you. If you lived before the war, you must have been the most outstanding politician. Deacon said with a smile. On the contrary, I used to be a police informant, that's all. Chen Yuyan replied. No wonder I felt that way when I first saw you. We're the same kind, Deacon said. Let the railroads cooperate with our volunteers. There is no conflict between our goals, and I have nothing against robots, and there are many ways we can help each other. Only one thing, you must change your way of thinking. Only change Federation can change the fate of those synthetic humans. Chen Yuyan said. You've already mentioned this, which means you're going to let me go. Deacon said non-committally. Chen Yuyan didn't ask him to express his opinion right away, but he also changed the subject and said, let's exchange some materials first, and use the General Atomics Shopping Center as a base to conduct transactions. Then we exchange lists of needs regularly, and each of us will go to find what the other wants. What did you get? Deacon threw away his smoked cigarette butt, and answered irrelevantly, continue north at the excavation site in the bushes, there is a garbage dump, and you should be able to find some useful things in it. But there is an active Iron Guard robot inside, this one. The program of the Iron Guard robot should be very complete. It is only guarding the garbage dump and will not attack others unless it violates the area it patrols. But I think with the help of Jackson and the Mechanic Master, it will not be a problem to get it done. Then it's settled. Chen Yuyan replied with a smile. See you next time. Deacon nodded at him, then turned around and climbed up the hillside by the road, waved his hands without looking back, and quickly disappeared into the bushes. Of course the agreement was reached, and Deacon also gave a usable Iron Guard robot and a garbage dump that was suspected to be a former military base as a reward. Although Chen Yuyan didn't know about Deacon's status in the railway organization, he did know that Deacon had reached an alliance agreement with the volunteer army on behalf of the railway organization just now. But Chen Yuyan was thinking about another aspect at this time. Because he found that Deacon is really a master in intelligence. If he is allowed to form an intelligence department, then I am afraid that the efficiency of this intelligence department is not worse than the notorious names such as KGB, Mossad, and Mi-6. Thank you for the reward of 100 starting coins from the great demon king of the abyss. All Heavens Unlimited Base. Author, Jingde Ren. Chapter 350. 345 Major Changes. After Irwin and Green were settled in the Wuxia assembly factory, Chen Yuyan inspected the current strength of the independent group. Because now the independent group is gradually gaining a reputation in the Federation, and more people are willing to join the independent group. Now the total number of independent regiments has reached about 100, which is the result of Ramirez's continuous improvement of recruitment standards. After Chen Yuyan's continuous special training and abuse, Ramirez seems to have gained some experience in abuse. He simplified Chen Yuyan's training content again, so that the training intensity would not be so outrageous. After all, the nutrition of the federal residents could not keep up, and their physical fitness was also much worse. In addition, he also rebuilt the ground floor of the factory, removed all the useless machinery and equipment, and freed up space to build a huge training ground. Can't get down. Fortunately, with the launch of the soilless plant factory built in Grey Gardens, the output of crops such as mutated fruit and blade grains has begun to increase, and the volunteer army has begun to gradually get rid of hunger, so that the recruits of the volunteer army can eat and drink enough continue to invest in training. Now when the volunteer army is carrying out various construction projects, it will bring NS-4 civilian robots with it. Although there was only one NS-4 robot factory that Chen Yuyan built here before, with continuous production day and night, more than 100 robots have been accumulated up to now. It is also because of this that the refitting work of Wuxia assembly factory went so smoothly. In fact, not only the Wuxia assembly factory, but also the residents on the side of the sheltered hills have begun to live in cement brick houses, and the quality of life has been greatly improved. In addition to 100 human soldiers, Jackson in the General Atomics Mall also sent a batch of robots, mainly Mr. Stormwind, and surprisingly, there was also a repaired Iron Guard robot, which were all used over there. Manufactured from materials collected by robots. What's interesting is that the very interesting AI, Boxer was also repaired and sent over again. However, to Chen Yuyan's surprise, the robot, which had been thinking about a boxing match all day long, did not choose the body of the Iron Guard robot, but instead chose the body of the Raider. But think about it, what it wants is a fair boxing match, not bombarding the enemy with rockets from a distance. However, seeing the barbed meteor hammer on the Raider's left hand, and the tomahawk with 3 chainsaws on his right hand, Chen Yuyan was very suspicious of the so-called fairness of the boxing match. And the mechanical master also sent a batch of robots, but they are mainly servo level and combination level, and there are a few cyber level ones. As for the quantum level, there is no one. But this is also expected. The parts and raw materials needed for quantum level robots are very scarce, and Chen Yuyan can't always use the production line of the infinite base to produce these parts. After providing rare materials to build a few quantum level robots, all of them will be handed over to the Master of Mechanics for him to control. The most important task is to guard the sales center of Rocco and wait for the expansion of the volunteer army's sphere of influence. After all, compared to the volunteer army, which is far away from the sheltered hills, the Brotherhood of Steel, which is located at the Dr. Dunn Airport and across the river from the Rocco Sales Center, is closer to here. After adding various robots, the number of combat units in the independent regiment reached about 150. In addition, Chen Yuyan also formulated the promotion rules for the independent regiment, and the rewards were body armor and power armor. All independent regiment fighters were at the private rank when they first joined. Those who perform well in the training will become non-commissioned officers and will be able to get a body armor. And if you perform well in battle and make great contributions, you will become a lieutenant and you can get a set of T-45 power armor. And if a soldier can make great achievements in many battles, he can become a school officer and get a set of T-60 power armor. Moreover, if a soldier at the officer level is seriously injured in the battle, he can also get a set of cyborg prosthetics to allow himself to return to the battlefield. The conditions for promotion are actually very strict, because these power armors are all produced by Chunyuan on the production line of Infinity Base, and the actual value is much higher than normal production. After all, production now costs points. In other words, if the soldiers of the independent regiment want to get these advanced equipment from Chunyuan, they still need to fight with their lives and blood. Human life is not valuable in the last days, and Chunyuan now only makes human life a little more valuable. But even so, such a promotion path makes people who intend to join the independent regiment ecstatic. You must know that in this place of the Federation, if anyone has a set of power armor, it is almost the same as someone owning a Bugatti Veyron in modern times. Most importantly, it gave them hope. A hope that even if he throws his head and blood, he can actually get something. During this period of time, the independent group has expanded the safety zone around itself centered on the Wuxia assembly factory. In the factory storage tank of the Tiberium mine, it becomes the raw material for the proliferation of the Tiberium mine. The reason why they dare to launch an attack like this is, more importantly, they have a steady supply of bullets. In the federal wasteland, guns are not uncommon, but bullets are really in short supply. Although there are many manual workshops for making bullets in the wasteland, the bullets produced are not satisfactory in terms of quantity or quality. On the contrary, the bullets produced in the bullet factory built by Chunyuan have no duds at all, and the castings fit perfectly, with the same size, and the output is very amazing. In this way, the fighters of the independent regiment don't have to worry about the consumption of bullets at all, and they can just shoot directly in the face of the ghouls. Raindrops of 9mm caliber rifle bullets can easily tear miners into pieces. As the number of wild ghouls decreased sharply, the places in Lexington that were previously occupied by wild ghouls gradually began to become vacant. Next, a part of the gunman organization based on the viaduct across the center of Lexington town began to gradually rise. Conflicts broke out between the gunners and the independent regiment. The gunners had more people, and neither the training nor the equipment could be compared with the stragglers of the marauders. They started from a U.S. military base, so they have a lot of pre-war U.S. standard equipment, and even some military robots. In several consecutive conflicts, the gunmen's organization and the independent regiment have been evenly matched. They used the viaduct in the middle of Lexington town as the dividing line, and the small-scale fighting never stopped for almost a moment. At this time, Chunyuan had already returned to Sanctuary Hill. Preston Garvey walked over with a serious face and said to him, "The Brotherhood of Steel and the gunners are fighting. What's the situation? Could it be that the fight was fierce?" Chunyuan asked, noticing that his face was not very good looking. Preston nodded and said slowly, "The Brotherhood of Steel's attack target is Quincy Town." Chunyuan was startled, and hurriedly asked, "You mean your previous?" "That's right, Quincy Town. The residents there have been massacred by the gunmen, and now it has become the largest base of the gunmen in the Federation. Those murderers spend all day drinking and having fun on the ruins of Quincy Town. Supplies." Preston sighed. The Brotherhood of Steel sent several squads to attack Quincy Town in the Bird helicopters, but the Bird helicopters were shot down by rockets before they reached the target area. Sure enough, the Brotherhood of Steel's act of crossing the river like a dragon will be hit in the face sooner or later. It's just that I didn't expect that the first blow was actually shot by the gunman, Chunyuan slandered. The Brotherhood of Steel didn't have many people, and they fell down 2 helicopters, so they had to fight the gunman. Chunyuan said while rubbing his chin. That's right. The Brotherhood of Steel immediately launched an attack on the gunmen in Quincy Town. Hundreds of knights in power armor were assembled and launched a frontal assault on Quincy Town. Preston said. "You tell me this, do you have any plans?" Chunyuan asked. Preston nodded and said, That's right, I want to send troops to retake the castle when the Brotherhood of Steel's eyes are all on Quincy Town. Castle? Chen Yuyan asked with a frown. This is the former headquarters of our volunteer army, but it was later attacked by mysterious enemies and the castle was abandoned. Now is the best time, let us occupy the castle and revive the volunteer army. Preston said firmly. Chen Yuyan saw undoubted firmness in his gaze. He understood that Preston had already made a decision, and it was absolutely impossible to change his mind. He thought for a while and asked, although the Brotherhood of Steel has no reason to go to war with the volunteers, the castle is not far from their headquarters Boston Airport, right? The Brotherhood and the volunteer army seem to have become the two biggest forces, so is it really appropriate to directly slap the base in their faces? I thought about it. Although this action will cause hostility to the Brotherhood of Steel, we must do it. The most important reason is population. The most densely populated place on the federal side is still downtown Boston, and you can see now, near the suburbs, towns such as Concord and Lexington have been occupied by wild ghouls. Even if we take these places, there will be insufficient population to fill them. Preston said. So you plan to take back the castle, and then announce the return of the volunteer army to the people of the entire Federation in a very high-profile way? In this way, with the prestige of the volunteer army before, more people will naturally be willing to join the volunteer army. Chen Yuyan said. I figured out Preston's plan, so, you are using the Brotherhood of Steel's hostility in exchange for a chance to quickly increase the population control? That's right. The volunteer army must expand its power faster, so that we can help more federal residents. Preston said. Chen Yuyan thought for a while, nodded and said, okay, so what's your plan? This is an expedition that will take almost the entire city of Boston very quickly. The Brotherhood of Steel has a strong fanaticism about tech items, so I don't want to push them too hard, so the robots can't be included in this expedition. Okay, the news is that the Brotherhood of Steel is already understaffed, and now they have sent a large number of fighters to attack Quincy Town, so their control of downtown Boston will be weakened. We should not face resistance from the Brotherhood of Steel. Preston said. No problem, the robot army can stay and continue to guard our territory in Sanctuary Hills and Concord Town. Chen Yuyan nodded in agreement. Not only that, I hope that the Independence Regiment will not participate in this expedition, but continue your original plan, to defeat the gunmen and occupy Lexington Town. This expedition will be completed by the headquarters of the Volunteer Army, but I still hope that you and Miss Yi can come to help us, Preston said. No problem, now the operation of the independent group has begun to mature, so I don't need to worry too much. Chen Yuyan readily agreed. Then it's settled, we'll set off tomorrow at the latest. Preston paused again after finishing speaking, then looked at Chen Yuyan very seriously and said, thank you very much. Without you, the volunteer army would not be here. I don't know how long it will take to get to this point. No matter what, helping you is also helping me. Chen Yuyan said a few words politely. However, at this moment, there was a sudden noise from the intersection, and someone said, Nate. You're back. Chen Yuyan hurriedly turned his head to look, and sure enough, he saw Knight walking over wearing a set of power armor. He doesn't wear a power armor helmet, so everyone can recognize him. It's just that the power armor he's wearing now is different from what Chen Yuyan knew before. This set of power armor is different from the T-45 and the improved T-60 power armor based on the T-45. The armor on his body looks thinner. And with more arcs. The two shoulder armors are also round. This shape makes this power armor look less mechanical punk, but more like a medieval warrior wearing heavy armor. However, Chen Yuyan could clearly see that the manufacturing process of this kind of power armor was obviously higher than that of T-45 or even T-60, and it was definitely a very powerful power armor. Chen Yuyan went up to greet him and said, You're finally back. You've been away for half a month this time, and the communication has also been disrupted, making it impossible to contact you. I went to the glowing sea, and I found a scientist who escaped from the academy. His name is Virgil. Knight said straight to the point, and then he patted the power armor on his body. You must be curious about this power armor, right? I found it from a barracks, and it still works. This is the best power armor of the US military before the war T-51B. Thank you for the 1000 starting point coins rewarded by the Star Sea Rangers. Thanks to Black Dawn 198 for the reward of 100 starting coins. All Heavens Unlimited Base. Author, Jingde Ren. Chapter 351. 346, Embark on an Expedition. Then Knight began to chatter again. I found this set of power armor in a former US military training camp. After all, I am most familiar with the T-51B. I think I wore it in the Battle of Anchorage. The T-51B fought against Yan Kingdom's Red Dragon Rider. However, Chen saw the deep exhaustion in his eyes. He walked over and patted Knight on the shoulder and said, "Okay, let me play with this set of power armor, you go to sleep first. It's a big deal. Let's talk after we rest." Knight smiled and said, "It's okay, I heard that you are going to go on an expedition to the castle, right? I'll take a rest and change clothes and start off right away." Then he came out of the power armor, waved his hand, and walked towards his house. Chen saw scorching marks all over his body. It was obvious that he had gone through a very fierce battle. Basically he just walked back with one breath. Chen gave Yi a wink, and Yi immediately understood. Her figure disappeared in an instant, and in the blink of an eye she had already flashed behind Knight, aiming at the back of his neck with a knife. Knight didn't expect to be attacked at all, and was immediately knocked out. Bring a doctor to give him a good treatment. You don't need him to participate in this expedition. It just so happens that if he stays behind on the mountain of sanctuary, we will feel more at ease. Chen frowned and said, "By the way, at last it's better to inject him with some sedative drugs." Preston nodded, and called a few men to take Knight home, where he was given a physical examination by the doctor. After a while, another figure appeared from the end of the road. It turned out to be the synthetic human detective Nick Valentine. I can only see that his current appearance is not much better than Chen-Yuan's. The windbreaker on his body is also damaged a lot, and he holds a gauze rifle in his hand. "Scary, I haven't seen you for a few days, and even the equipment has been upgraded." Chen-Yuan joked. "If there weren't a few large death claws chasing after me, I would still enjoy this trip." Valentine waved his hand. "It's just Nate, he really needs to rest. For more than a week, I only slept for a few hours at most, and almost every step I took on the other side of the glowing sea encountered mutated creatures." Chen-Yuan sighed softly and said, "During this period of time, he found traces of his son, and immediately forced every cell in his body to be excited, but up to now, his body has reached its limit. By the way, what are you doing? What happened? Why did you go to the glowing sea? If I remember correctly, it should be the place where the nuclear bomb that destroyed Boston exploded." Valentine nodded and replied, "Actually, it's a long story. I just wanted to try it out, so I asked Knight to take Kroger's brain tissue to Fanglin Town for Dr. Emily to check. But when we came to Fanglin Town and handed her the pile of stinking brains, she actually read some information from it." "That pile of brains?" Chen-Yuan also found it unbelievable. "No, that bunch of brains does nothing but make us stink. The memory is read from an implant in Kroger's brain. Because part of the implant is in the hippocampus, part of him the memory remains. Then I entered Kroger's memory world together with Knight, and learned about his life through some fragments." "Then what?" In this desperate federal wasteland, who is absolutely good and who is absolutely evil?" Nick Valentine was obviously deeply touched by Kroger's memories, and also I don't know what he saw, but thinking about it, no one's life is simple. There is no goodness or evil without a reason in this world. Maybe they saw a side of Kroger that people don't know. Nick Valentine went on to say, in Kroger's memory, we got a lot of useful information. First of all, Knight's son Sean is indeed with Kroger. He is almost 10 years old. But completely unaware that Kroger was the murderer of his mother. He was still a baby when he was kidnapped. It doesn't matter. After he got in touch with Knight for a while, the natural affinity between father and son will make him understand everything. Chun Yuyan said. Nick Valentine nodded. Second point, we finally discovered the secret of the Academy's disappearance. Why has no one been able to find the Academy for so many years? Because the Academy has no entrance at all. They just rely on a teleportation technology to get in and out of the Academy of. Chun Yuyan immediately frowned when he thought of the synthets that were constantly being sent from the Academy when they were in the arc injection system. In fact, what he was thinking about was not how the Academy with the teleportation technology should win, but what he was thinking about was, why didn't the Academy use the teleportation technology to do more things? In terms of teleportation technology, it is easy for the Academy to destroy a city or an organization. If one day the Academy suddenly sends a synthetic human army to Sanctuary Hill, then there is no doubt that the volunteer army will suffer a fatal blow. But the question is, why didn't they do it? Or, in their view, what kind of existence are the residents of the Federation? At the same time, we also found out about one of Kroger's latest missions going to the glowing sea to hunt down a scientist who defected from the Academy, Dr. Virgil. Who knew that he was attacked by the Mechanic Master's robot on the way and was slightly injured, but after such a delay, Knight beat him to the door and killed him directly. Then you went to the glowing sea? The glowing sea is not so easy to go to, just like the name over there, the glowing ocean. This light does not come from sunlight, nor from electric lights, but from radioactive substances. In other words, it is full of lethal radiation. Of course I am not afraid of radiation, but Knight is not. So he looked everywhere for radiation-resistant suits, and finally found a T-51B power armor after searching for 2 or 3 days. Although the anti-radiation ability of the T-51B power armor is excellent, it is still inferior to professional anti-radiation suits, but Knight still insisted on going to the glowing sea despite the radiation. Over there is another ecology completely different from the Federation. There are monsters of radiation everywhere, as well as lunatics from the atomic god religion, and the nuclear radiation that will never dissipate. Finally we found Dr. Virgil, and learned the truth about the Academy's teleportation technology from him. The truth about teleportation technology? How do they teleport? Molecular teleportation technology. Nick Valentine said seriously, this technology can decompose people into molecular states, then teleport them, and reassemble them at the destination. This teleportation technology allows them to go to the Federation anywhere you want to go. But teleportation technology also needs coordinates, right? How can they be sure they won't teleport people into the wall? This is the Academy's best kept secret, Diamond City Radio. Nick Valentine said. Diamond City Radio? I know. Many federal residents listen to the radio. But most of the time it plays some old jazz music. I don't like this style. Chun Yuyan said. The radio wave sent by the Diamond City radio station contains the coordinate code of the molecular transmission. Moreover, the terrain of the target area is imaged and positioned through the reflection of the radio wave, so that those obstacles can be avoided, and people can be directly transported to the desired location. Position. That is to say, as long as the radio wave of Diamond City Radio can reach the place, it is the range that the synthetic man of the Academy can transmit. That's right. And Virgil also told us that we must find a hunter from the Academy. and the Hunter is the latest type of synthesizer specially manufactured by the Academy to hunt and kill those defected synthesizers. Virgil also transformed his Pip-Boy allows him to use the radio signal of the Diamond City radio station to find the fluctuations caused by the molecular transmission, so that he can find the Hunter. With that, Nick sighed and said, he originally planned to go immediately the one who started looking for the Hunter, but I stopped him. He lit a cigarette and continued, his body has reached its limit, so I told him that he should go back to Sanctuary Hills and mobilize the power of the volunteer army to find the Hunter. Otherwise, he will find a Hunter in the Federation alone. Isn't the Hunter looking for a needle in a haystack? This is how he was coaxed back. Thank you for your hard work. Chen Yuyan thanked. Hee, it's not hard, anyway, I'm a tireless synthetic man. Nick waved his hand, speaking of which, I plan to move my detective agency here. Now the Brotherhood of Steel has it started to show up in Diamond City, and I was worried that one day they would blow it up. Of course you are most welcome, and I will also grant you the post of honorary sheriff. In this way, you can mobilize the local security forces to help when you are handling the case. Then, I will take you to find a suitable place to live first. Come on, Preston said from the sidelines. Okay, I'll trouble you then. Chen Yuyan let the two of them go to work, and he focused on this T-51B power armor. He put his hand on it, read the scan silently, and immediately got a feedback from the system. Scanning is complete. T-51B power armor data has been entered into the Infinite Base database and can be built. T-51B power armor. Construction conditions, Level 3, Manufacturing Center. Build time, 90 minutes. Construction resources, 300 kilograms of metal, 650 kilograms of low-purity refined tiberium. Function, the most mature power armor designed and manufactured by the United States before the war is made of composite materials, which reduces weight and improves defense. And there is a layer of 10-micron silver ablation coating on the surface, which can well defend against the shooting of energy weapons, and also has a good 3 defense effect. Chen Yuyan's first reaction when he saw this column of data was, how could such an awesome thing be manufactured by a third-level manufacturing center? I was relieved afterwards. T-60 power armor is also a third-level technology, and it seems that these are all from the same era. Only the X-01 advanced power armor obtained before has a generation difference with these power armors. He compared the data of the T-60 power armor with the data of the T-51, and found that the T-60 power armor was mainly upgraded from the T-45. Although the production process was improved, the composite material armor was changed to improve the defense. But it is not as good as the T-51 in terms of flexibility and radiation and energy-resistant weapon design. In fact, the T-60, as a power armor researched and manufactured by the Brotherhood of Steel, cannot surpass the T-51 in many aspects due to limited conditions. For example, the silver ablation coating on the surface cannot be achieved by the current technology and equipment, and the T-51B also has a body fluid circulation system. Give the driver a drink. But in the cruelest battlefield environment, when the group of enemies is surrounded by a group of enemies and there is no time to settle down for a second, this function can really save lives. Chen Yuyan is very satisfied with this harvest, because among the several types of power armor he can build now, the performance of the T-45 is indeed not very good. It moves slowly and has poor survivability, so it cannot replace the armored force at all. The main battlefield role of the T-60 Tesla enhanced power armor is fire support, and it needs a large number of high-energy weapons to play its greatest role. However, Chen Yuyan does not have high-energy weapons in his hands. And the X-01 advanced power armor needs a level 4 manufacturing center to build, and the construction time is as long as 400 minutes, which is simply unacceptable. In contrast, the T-51B, which can be built at a level 3 manufacturing center and only takes 180 minutes to build, is the most suitable power armor for large-scale deployment in all aspects. With enough powerful individual weapons, this kind of power armor seems to really be able to challenge the armored forces. It is indeed the power armor equipped by the US military on a large scale before the war. A perfect balance has been reached between performance and cost. This power armor can be said to be a great gift from Knight to him. No wonder he talked about power armor first after he came back. It seems that even at the critical moment of finding his son, he did not forget to bring himself some good things. Chen Yuyan smiled knowingly, and immediately devoted himself to the preparations for this expedition without stopping. The next day, Knight was still asleep under the doctor's care. And this side is already ready. Chen Yuyan and Yi joined the large army assembled by the volunteer army this time. For this expedition, Preston mustered close to 200 soldiers. This is almost all the forces that the volunteer army can mobilize after deducting the guard forces of each village. These volunteer soldiers all wore three-cornered hats, retro light yellow jackets, communicators hanging on their chests, and Scorpion Eye assault rifles, with a neat military appearance. They will cross the entire Boston from the city center, arrive at the castle in the east of the city, and then announce the return of the volunteers to the entire Federation in a high-profile manner. And the fate of the Federation will be completely rewritten on that day. Thanks to a group of small worlds, Emperor Yifeng and book friends 2019011908160343 for the reward of 100 starting coins. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. All Heaven's Unlimited Base. Author, Jingde Ren. Chapter 352. 347 Changes in the Wasteland. In the Red Rocket Maintenance Station, all the residents here have been removed, and only a large number of robots remain here. It is mainly the NS-4 civilian robot that Chen Yuyan built here, and some Mr. Skillful hands sent by the General Atomics Shopping Center. The guards here are mainly more than 20 protector-type guard robots. Of course, no one would be stupid enough to attack this stronghold full of robots. The army of the volunteer army passed by here, and several protector robots came over immediately, telling them not to get too close to this side, and they are currently loading and unloading dangerous minerals. Chen Yuyan turned his head to look, only to see more than a dozen NS-4 civilian robots busy. They opened the cover of the underground oil storage tank, and the countless tiberium crystals inside immediately reflected green light in the sunlight. They used metal containers to take out these crystals, and then sent them to the tiberium refinery nearby. Next to the huge refinery, barrels of liquid tiberium are extracted, and then these robots send the tiberium to the tiberium power station on the other side, and the excess is poured into a dedicated underground oil storage tank. Store it up. The Red Rocket Maintenance Station is now the energy center of the entire volunteer army. 5 tiberium power stations were built here to continuously provide energy for the volunteer army. Those robots also need to come here to charge. After Jackson joined the volunteer army and went to the General Atomics Mall, the Crab Spider engineering robot that Chen Yuyan built before did not need to continue to repair the robot there. Now it has been transferred back to lay power transmission lines for the volunteer army, and now the line for Shelter Hill has been laid and is being laid in the direction of the Starlight Rest Station. Chen Yuyan and the others went all the way, and on the way, they saw a crab spider-shaped engineering robot laying underground cables. It is tirelessly laying lines, and several NS-4 and protector robots are constantly carrying various materials and wires for it. Only now did Chen Yuyan truly see life and hope in this wasteland. In fact, people's requirements are very simple. They just need to have something to eat, clothes to wear, and a place to live. However, the previous Federation couldn't even give them these most basic things. But the volunteers gave them that hope. Chen Yuyan thought that his decision to join the volunteer army was indeed the wisest. He did not misunderstand Preston Garvey. Although this guy was a bit wordy and he liked to order people around, it could not conceal his natural leadership qualities. The brilliance of idiosyncrasy and humanity. Although the volunteer army has now adjusted its policy, it has changed from establishing an organization aimed at helping federal residents to establishing a force that can be the biggest reliance of federal residents. From helping to ruling, but their original intentions have not changed because of this. In the entire territory of the volunteer army, the army and the people are integrated, happy, and share the same hatred. The passages between several main settlements have also been cleared due to the constant movement of caravans, making it easier to pass. After advancing a few kilometers, they received a communication. This is the outpost of the Starlight Rest Station of the Volunteer Army. I have seen you. Is there a Starlight Rest stop? What's the situation in our direction? Preston picked up the communicator and asked. I'm afraid it's not very peaceful. The Starlight Rest Station said, and then only heard a burst of clear gunshots from a distance. Immediately afterwards, there was a howl from a forest not far away, and more than a dozen wild ghouls rushed out from it. Boom! 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 The crisp gunshots kept ringing, and the precise firepower could kill a ferocious ghoul almost every time. The volunteer soldiers who had been so idle along the way also stepped forward and shot one after another. In just a few seconds, more than a dozen ferocious ghouls were all wiped out. Sorry, they were driven in by us last night. We have been staring at them for a long time. Thank you for bringing them out, said the communication. It's okay, thanks, Preston replied. After walking for more than 10 minutes, a tall building can already be seen in the distance. This is a flat building, like a wall, with a height of 30 meters, which is very conspicuous in this empty area. Moreover, after the volunteer army established this place as a front-line base, the projection wall was continuously reinforced, made of steel structures, and a concrete wall was built outside the wall to thicken the protection of the building. Now this projection wall used to show car movies is completely a huge sentry tower. Rest here for half an hour, get some supplies, and then we'll go, Preston said. Coming to the Starlight Rest Station, this drive-in theater has also been converted into a barracks. Several military tents were set up on the wide parking lot, and 3 other brick and tile houses were under construction. Several NS-4 civilian robots and more than 20 shirtless soldiers were busy on the construction site. Several volunteer soldiers in windbreakers and helmets with tactical goggles came down. What they hold in their hands is the modified M1 Garand rifle. Although this very classic weapon was replaced by the M14 rifle after World War II, it has been enduring in the civilian market, so you can find many of them now. However, the Garand rifles in the hands of these soldiers have been very finely modified, the receiver has also been strengthened, and a holographic sight that does not match the wooden gun body at all has been added. In the hands of these carefully selected excellent snipers, this rifle has become the most terrible weapon. Preston also has high popularity among the volunteers. He walked over and chatted with those snipers. He could remember the names of these snipers, and the conversation made people feel like spring breeze. The sniper was also very relaxed, and began to complain that he hadn't gained much recently, because all the mutant creatures and ferocious ghouls within a few kilometers around had been killed. The group of wild ghouls I encountered yesterday should have been driven out from Lexington by the Independence Regiment. From their dialogue, we can also see the strategic significance of the Starlight Rest Station. In this world that generally lacks heavy weapons and basically has no air power, this 30-meter high building standing in the wilderness is an absolutely unsolvable commanding height. Leaving the Starlight Rest Station, continue towards Lexington, which is the sphere of influence of Chen Yuyan's independent regiment. The town that was once occupied by countless wild ghouls and looters is now much empty. But this is still a battlefield. The gunners have a large base here, and the independent regiment is fighting fiercely with the gunners here. Thanks to Xingai Rangers and World Taoists for the 1000 starting point coins. Thanks to Black Dawn 198 for the reward of 100 starting coins. All Heavens Unlimited Base. Author, Jingde Ren. Chapter 353. 348 Return to the Castle. When the volunteer army entered Lexington, the Independence Regiment was still fighting fiercely with the gunners. Relying on the advantages of equipment and robots, the Independent Regiment has suppressed the gunner organization here inside the base and dare not go out. And around Lexington, there are protector robots responsible for cleaning the battlefield everywhere. These are robots sent by the Independent Regiment. Create more tiberium crystals. The arrival of the volunteer army led by Preston was an unexpected surprise. The gunmen who were fighting in the corner saw another huge army coming, and immediately lost their fighting spirit and began to flee. As a result, it took only 2 hours for the Independence Regiment led by SI to break through the base of the gunmen. They went all the way in and killed at least 50 well-trained gunmen soldiers, and captured more than 20 prisoners. As a result, the arrival of Preston and the others became the last straw that overwhelmed the gunners' organization. Starting today, there are no longer large-scale hostile forces around the town of Lexington. Chen Yuyan chatted with Ramirez and asked him to continue to clean up the remnants of the gunmen here, and take those prisoners back to torture them. Those who are willing to join can be given a chance to be inspected through labor reform, and the diehards will be directly thrown into the tiberium alive. Subcrystal storage tanks become raw materials. Along the way, Chen Yuyan also found that, inadvertently, several towns on the outskirts of Boston, especially in the direction west of the Charles River, had undergone earth-shaking changes. Now even the Brotherhood of Steel seldom come to the west bank of the Charles River. Now their only stronghold on the west bank is the Cambridge Police Station, which is the place where Chen Yuyan met the Paladin dance last time. Moreover, there were many wanderers and scavengers on the road who wanted to join after seeing the clean-up troops of the volunteer army. These people were arranged by Preston nearby. Enter the East Bank area through the Charles River on a well-established bridge, which is the urban part of Boston. They didn't cover up their tracks, and Preston seemed to be doing it on purpose, deliberately passing outside Diamond City. What surprised Chen Yuyan was that many residents of Diamond City came out of the city to watch the volunteer army. The prestige of the volunteer army in Diamond City is still unmatched. After all, the volunteer army helped Diamond City repel a large-scale attack by looters in the past. These are the prestige foundations left by the ancestors of the volunteer army. Chen Yuyan saw Piper right among the crowd, and she was also very excited, telling people about the deeds of the volunteer army, and beside her was a young girl who was selling a stack of newspapers. The mayor of Diamond City, Mai Dona, was also in the crowd. Chen Yuyan took a deep look at him, and his expression was not very good looking, probably because he felt the threat because of the high prestige of the volunteer army. "I'll clean you up later." Chen Yuyan said something in his heart. Now the mysterious veil of the academy is being peeled off layer by layer. The truth about synthetic humans and the reason why the academy disappears have all been understood by them. Next, Knight needs to find and kill a synthetic human hunter. In this way, there is some randomness, so Chen Yuyan's participation in Preston's expedition is not in conflict. In fact, Chen Yuyan also killed a hunter in the ArcJet system before, but he didn't think about it at the time, and the 3-generation synthetic human infinite base couldn't be scanned and manufactured, so he didn't pay much attention to it at the time. After that, the hunter's body must have been recovered by the Academy. That kind of molecular teleportation technology sounds unreliable, decomposing people into molecular states and then teleporting? Chen Yuyan thought about his physical condition at that time, and he felt that it was impossible for the Academy to analyze his peculiar body, let alone assemble him back from the molecular state. So molecular teleportation like this, get the hell out of here. Passing by from Diamond City, people continued to join the team along the way. Because this is no longer the west bank of the Charles River, they can't just let them go back by themselves, they can only follow the brigade. After going back and forth like this, Chunyuan originally thought that there would be a series of vicious battles, but the result was completely different from what he had imagined. Along the way, many people took the initiative to join the volunteer army, and there were even many sought-after and predators who were willing to give up their territory in Boston to join the volunteer army. I didn't feel much on the west bank of the Charles River, but after entering downtown Boston, the original 200-person team increased to 300, 400. When they came near the castle, their team had increased to about 1,000 people. Many people even followed the volunteer army with their families. Preston also asked everyone to distribute their food to these newcomers. Seeing the long string behind him, Chunyuan also felt emotional, which reminded him of a famous scene in the Romance of the Three Kingdoms, Changbanpo. But he is not Liu Bei, and it is impossible for him to be chased like a dog. The castle is located on the east bank of Boston, a modern castle, and it has a very classic bastion layout. The castle with this layout can be said to be the last glory of the castle era. The entire fortress city has a polygonal structure, and each corner can become a relatively independent vitality point, and it can also form crossfire with friendly forces on both sides. But now it seems that the castle is dilapidated, and many parts of the city wall have collapsed, but there are also many traces of people's activities not long ago. This huge team of 1,000 men easily entered the castle. The interior of the castle was actually occupied by some crabs. Of course, this is not the kind of hairy crab, but a crab that is more than 2 meters tall and walks upright. These crabs are so bullet resistant that not even a 9mm Scorpion rifle can penetrate their carapace. However, their weakness lies in their stomachs. The number of volunteers is also very sufficient now. They are divided into several small teams to besiege, and there is a dense hail of bullets. No matter how hard the shells of these crabs are, they cannot escape the end of being shot. It took the volunteers 2 days of marching to reach the castle, but it took only 10 minutes to completely occupy the castle. I thought it would be a tough battle. This is the end. A bunch of crabs. Chunyuan was a little disappointed. You should know that the symbolic significance of this expedition is greater than the actual significance. Many residents of the Federation don't know about the Quincy massacre, but they do know about the volunteer army, and they also know that the castle that the volunteer army once occupied finally fell. It's just that I was in Quincy town, don't know what happened here? Preston sighed. No matter what, the Brotherhood of Steel will definitely not sit idly by. Before that, let's search the castle thoroughly. The most important thing is, what happened to the volunteer army stationed in the castle at that time? See if we can find some information. Chunyuan said, looking at the distant sky. Just across the river, the huge airship of the Brotherhood of Steel floated ahead near the towers of Boston Airport. There is no doubt that Preston's move was directly slapped in the face of the Brotherhood of Steel. Of course, he can't be blamed. Who told the Brotherhood of Steel to choose a base next to the former headquarters of the Volunteer Army? Visible to the naked eye, 3 Flying Bird helicopters left the flight deck of the airship and flew towards the side.